Hey everyone, in this video we are going to be making a circuit for a project where we are going to light up either a green or a red LED light using a microcomputer and a button. So in order to do this, we are going to use Tinkercad to design our circuit, and eventually we will actually make the physical circuit using those real life tools. So we want to start by using Tinkercad, testing things out. And when you log into Tinkercad, on your home page, we're going to come over here to Create. And in this case, we are going to create a circuit. So click on Circuit. It will open up your workspace, and within your workspace, over here on the right-hand side, we have a bunch of components. We've got basic components, and we can choose a bunch of other ones as well. But for this project, we're going to stay on the basic components. Now, the first thing we want to do is change the name of this project. I don't like how, well, I understand why Tinkercad gives us this weird name because it's just random names, but we're going to click right here. We're going to change this within our own records. I want to call this red or green light. And I'll tell you what, let's call it red or green light with button. And that'll be the name of our project. Well, for this project, we are going to start off by using a microcomputer. The microcomputer that we are going to use is called an Arduino Uno. So within all of these components over on the right-hand side, you will see right here, it says Arduino Uno R3. All we have to do is click and drag it into our workspace, and let's just drop it right there. If we wanted to, we could change the name of this. I'll just call it Arduino, or maybe I'll just call this my microcomputer. So there we go. The other thing that we can do within our workspace is we can zoom in or zoom out using the tools on either our trackpad or on our mouse. So I'm going to make this a little bit smaller to create a little bit more space up here. The other thing that we need is a breadboard. Now this is called a breadboard, and well, let me go ahead and grab it. So if we come over here to the right-hand side, it says breadboard small. I'll click right there, drag it into my workspace, and I'm just going to put it above the microcomputer. Zoom in just a little bit. So this breadboard is where we're going to put all of our components for this project, and eventually we will connect the things on this breadboard to the Arduino microcomputer to make it do things. Let's keep in mind that for our project, we want to light up either a red light or a green light using a button, and that's all we want to do. So before we start pulling in other components over here on the right-hand side, let's talk about this breadboard for a second. So I'm going to zoom in on the breadboard, and I want to show you some things about this. So we have a positive and a negative. These two lines of holes on our breadboard are going to allow us to give power to and from the components that we pull in. The other thing that I want to show you about the positive and the negative here is this. If I hover over any of these holes in the positive row, this entire row kind of gets highlighted with green circles. What this is telling us is that all of these holes are connected together. So anything that gets plugged into these holes is going to be connected to all of the other things that are plugged into these holes. The same thing is true with the negative line, the negative row on the breadboard. All of these are going to be negatives. Now, things change when we get into the middle part of the breadboard. And I'm going to hover over line number 1 or column number 1 right here. And you can see that as I hover over each of these sets of holes, instead of the holes being highlighted in green horizontally, they are now being highlighted vertically. That means that all of these vertical holes right here are connected to each other. And if I go up to this side, all of these are connected to each other. Now it does not cross over this midline here unless you connect from there to there with a wire. But like for number 13, if I hover here, all of these holes are connected to number 13 right here on the top side. But on the bottom side, these are separated. The ones on the bottom are separated from the ones on the top. So that gives us a little bit of an idea of what's happening with this breadboard. Let's zoom back out, kind of center things, and let's start to pull in some components. So one thing that I want is a button. So I'm going to come over here to the right, and I'm going to click on Push Button, drag it into my workspace, and I'm going to go ahead and put my push button, let's put it right here. That's a good spot for it. And again, I can change the name, and I'll just call it Button. The next thing I need are 2 LED lights. So over here are my LED lights. I'm going to grab one, drag it into my workspace, and we're going to put it, actually, before I put it in there, I want you to notice something. On this, if I zoom in, there are 2 different wires that are connected to this LED light. One has a straight leg and one has a crooked leg. Now when you have a physical LED, one of these 2 legs is usually longer than the other one. Usually the anode is longer and the cathode is shorter. So keep that in mind when you're working with the physical LEDs. But for us, we are going to zoom back out, center some things, and we're going to take this red LED and let's just put it in this spot. I'll tell you what, I'll put it right here underneath 8 and 9, or above, I should say, 8 and 9. All right, I need another LED, so I'm going to grab this one, pull it into my workspace, and I'm going to connect it to the breadboard. Let's put it right here under 12 or above 12 and 13. Now, if you remember, even in our name, we want a red or green light with a button. So these LEDs right now are both red. Well, let's change this one on the right to green. If I highlight it, you can see that, if I click on it, you can see it's highlighted in blue. And I come over here, and I want to change it to green. I could change it to any one of these colors, but let's go with green. And once I change it to green, you can see that now one of them is red and one of them is green. All right, the next thing I need to do is I need to connect my microcomputer to my breadboard by giving it some power. When we create a circuit, it needs to be a complete pathway between each of these components, the 2 LEDs and the button. There needs to be a completed pathway between each one of these components and the microcomputer. So we're going to start off by connecting a wire from the Arduino to the negative row right here. Now, negative on the breadboard should always be connected to the ground on our microcomputer. So if we zoom in here a little bit, we can see that there are different pins. Each one of these is called a pin. So we've got 0 through 13 on this side, and then we have a ground, and we have some other things over here as well. On the bottom side, whoops, let's undo that. On the bottom side, we've got some different pins. We've got some pins that are called analog pins, and then these are power pins right here. You can see that this line goes from there to there. So we have 2 more ground pins on this side, and then we have different voltages right here as well, 5 volts and 3.3 volts. zoom back out, center things up. So we need to connect the breadboard to the Arduino. We're going to start off by connecting the ground to the negative row. To do that, you can see that ground is kind of highlighted here in red. I'm just going to click, and when I do that, it starts to make a wire that I can click on the end of this row and connect that wire. So right now, I have a green wire connected from my ground to the negative terminal on my breadboard. Now, I accidentally clicked on that wire right there. I can't just undo it without connecting it to another spot, but I don't want it there, so I'm going to hit delete and get rid of it. Now, a couple of things that I like to do to stay organized is I want my ground wire to be black. So if I highlight my ground wire, you can see that it's got the little dots on it and it's highlighted in blue around the edges of it. I want to come up here and change the wire color to black. I like to use black because if you notice, the negative symbol on the breadboard is black, and so I'm going to make my wire black. Now the other thing that I don't like at this point in time is I don't like that my wire is kind of all over the place and it's kind of ugly to me. So I'm going to highlight my wire and I'm going to grab these little dots and I'm going to move them around to kind of square them off to keep things more organized. So now everything is squared off. When you do this physically, you're not going to be able to do this quite as neatly, but on this Tinkercad workspace, I want to keep things neat and organized. All right. Well, the other thing I want to do is connect the positive to my Arduino. So I am going to start a wire from the 5-volt pin and take it all the way around and connect it to the positive terminal. Well, at this point in time, I don't want to use black. I'm going to change my wire to red. So I'm going to do it before I make the wire this time. I'm going to click on the 5-volt, and I'm going to try to keep things organized and squared off as best I can. Connect there. I don't think this is completely squared off. Now it is, and there we go. So I've got a positive, the positive terminal on the breadboard going to my 5-volt pin, and I've got the negative terminal on the breadboard going to the ground right here. Well, I've connected the positive and the negative, but I don't have any of my components, my 2 LEDs or my button connected to anything. Right now, the red here is connected all the way across this row, the 5 volts, and the ground is connected all the way across this row, but neither one of them are connected to the button or either of the LEDs. So let's start to connect those. I'm going to start off by connecting my 2 LEDs to the ground terminal or the negative terminal, and I'm going to connect them. I could connect them with a wire, but I'm not going to do that because I want to use a resistor. If you give too much power to an LED, it could get too bright and pop, and then your LED is no good. Now, if you pop an LED using this, you're probably not going to get hurt in any way. But if a light bulb, you've maybe seen it in the movies. The movie that comes to my mind is Monsters, Inc. When Boo laughs and the power gets so, there's that huge power surge. Hopefully this isn't spoiler alert for a movie that's, 25 years old, maybe 20 years old, depending on when you're watching this video. When Boo laughs and there's a power surge and all the light bulbs in her bedroom explode. Well, we don't want that to happen to these LEDs. We don't want them to get too much power and the LED explodes. It wouldn't explode like it does in the movies. So in order to avoid that, we're going to use a resistor. So I'm going to grab a resistor and I am going to connect the cathode of the LED to the ground. Now, if I let go right there, I'm going to zoom in. You can see that if we remember, this entire column right here is all connected to each other. So this cathode, because it's on the same column as this resistor, this cathode is connected to this end of the resistor, and this end of the resistor is connected all the way to the negative, and the negative is connected all the way to the ground. So at this point in time, I now have this LED connected to all the way to the ground. It follows this pathway all the way around, and boom, there we go. I'm going to do the same thing with my green LED. I'm going to pull in a resistor, and I'm going to connect it right there. And now my cathode is connected to this resistor, which is connected to the negative terminal, which is connected to the ground. Now, one of the other things, let me kind of reorganize this. One of the other things about these resistors is we can change the amount of resistance. What these resistors do is just like their name. They slow down the power that is going to the LED so that there's not too much power. It slows it down. It allows it to have the right amount of power so that your LED doesn't pop. All right. Now we can change the amount of resistance, and we're actually going to do that. So if I click on and highlight this resistor, over here we can change the amount of resistance. I'm going to change this to a 220 resistor. Now I'm not going to go into the details of all the different reasons why to choose that. Just know that that's the resistor that we are going to use. I'm going to do the same thing with this resistor. I'm going to change it to 220. And there we go. Well, I now need to connect my button to the negative terminal. So it is grounded as well. Well, the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to let this side right here of the button, I'm going to connect it with a wire. So I'm going to click right here, and then I'm going to go all the way down to the negative terminal and connect it. Now my wire is already black. I like that. So this side of my button, this part of my button is connected to this part of my wire, which is connected to this row, the negative terminal, which once again is connected to the ground. So there we go. Zoom back out. Well, I've got all of my components connected to the negatives or the ground. Now I need to connect to the positives. Let's start with the LEDs. Now, I don't need to connect my anode to this positive row, because what I'm going to do is connect the anode to one of these pins. Each one of these on the Arduino is a pin. This goes from pin number 0 all the way up to pin number 13. And then on the bottom side, whoops, let me undo that. I didn't mean to move it. On the bottom side, I've got some analog pins, which we are not going to use for this project. And I've got some power pins. Notice that there are 2 more ground pins on this side. All right, zoom back out, center things up. There we go. But I want to connect my LEDs to a couple of pins. I'm going to do that with a wire. So I'm going to use a green wire to connect my green LED. So this anode is going to start right there. And I am going to bring my wire down to, let's put it in pin number 7. So there we go. Now, I like to straighten these up a little bit, but there we go. That looks good. So now, if we notice, zoom in, this anode, the positive side, is connected to this wire, and this wire is connected to this pin. Eventually, what will happen is when we push this button, it will activate this pin, which will send power to this light. And because this light is connected from the positive pin 7 on one side, the power will travel all the way through that LED, through the resistor, back to this black wire, back to the ground, and the circle has been completed. And that light, that LED, will light up. Well, I want to do the same thing for the red LED. So let's change the color of my wire to red, since this is a red LED. I want to connect this anode, so I'll start right there. And I'm going to connect to pin number 8. So there we go. If I wanted to move these around a little bit, I could do that. But once again, if you look, pin number 8 will eventually send power to this row or this column, which is connected to that anode. It will flow through the LED light. It'll come back out of the cathode, through the resistor, through the black wire here, back to the ground, and once again, this circle has been completed. This pathway has been completed. So the only pathway that has not been completed yet is the pathway to my button. So let's do that right now. Well, I need to put another resistor on my button. And in order to do that, I am going to pull in another resistor, and I am going to connect it right here. Now let me zoom in so you can see what's happening here. On this resistor, I do not want to connect it to the negative set of pins because I already have the button connected to the negative set of pins with this wire. So I'm going to put this resistor, I'm going to connect it to the positive set of pins right here. Well, at this point in time, this button is almost complete, but I need to connect that button to a pin on the Arduino microcomputer so that when this button is pushed, the microcomputer can read it and say, ooh, somebody pushed the button. And when the button is pushed, it's going to send power to either the green pin number 7 or the red pin number 8. It's going to send power to one of these two randomly, which will complete the circuit between one of these two LEDs, and it will light one up. So I'm going to use a different color wire here. I'm going to use a blue wire for my button. And I'm going to put a wire right here, and I'm going to bring it down to this spot and connect this wire to pin number, let's go to pin number 4. And then I like to clean this up just a little bit. There we go. So now, by doing this, once I write my code, and we'll be doing that in a different video, once I write my code, I will push the button, and when the button is pushed, there will be a signal sent from the microcomputer. The microcomputer will read through this blue wire that the button has been pressed, and then once that button has been pressed, it will randomly tell, like I said just a minute ago, one of these two pins to be activated and send power to one of these two LEDs, and either of these will light up. So at this point in time, we have completed our entire circuit. Now, in a different video, we're going to talk about how to write the code to make this work. I actually have the code already installed into Tinkercad for this. I'm not going to show it to you just yet, but if I click on Start Simulation, it will start running the code for this particular project that we're doing. And if I click on the button, press the button, one of my two LEDs has lit up. You can see that the green one is lit up now. If I let go of the button, then the green LED turns off. Let me zoom in here. You can see it a little bit better. Press the button, the red one lit up. Let go of the button, the red light turns off. Press the button, red again. Let go, it turns off. Press the button, red again. Let go, it turns off. And we could keep on doing that forever as long as this program is running on the microcomputer. So in class, we are actually going to build this physically, and we're going to use it for some new things in our statistics class, for a new little lesson. But for today, in this video, we are going to build the circuit in Tinkercad, and eventually we are going to write the code, and you guys are going to see if you can get your lights, your LEDs to light up properly. Hopefully this is a fun project for you. Hopefully this is easy to understand, and hopefully you have a wonderful day.